A legacy of terror, lynching, in post-Civil War America. The year is 1865, the Civil War ends, slavery is abolished. But for Black Americans, a new struggle begins. This is the era of Reconstruction, a time of hope, but also of intense racial violence. White Southerners clinging to power unleash a reign of terror. Their weapon? Lynching. Lynching was more than murder, it was a tool of control, a message sent through brutality. It was a public spectacle, designed to instill fear in Black communities. False accusations were common, minor offenses or even perceived disrespect could lead to death. Lynching aimed to maintain white supremacy. It enforced racial hierarchy in a society grappling with the end of slavery. It was a brutal reminder of the limits of freedom for Black Americans. This is the dark legacy that haunts America, a legacy we must confront. Stolen lives, unbroken spirits, the stories of Alonzo Bailey, Glenn Helms, and the Howze Sisters. Alonzo Bailey was lynched in 1907. His crime? Refusing to work for unfair wages. Bailey's death reveals the economic underpinnings of racial terror. Lynching wasn't just about hate, it was about controlling Black labor. Glenn Helms was dragged from a jail cell in 1911. Accused without evidence, he was lynched by a mob. Helms' story highlights the absence of due process. The legal system offered no protection. Lynching was the law of the land. In 1908, the Howze Sisters, two young girls, met a horrific end. Their crime? Being related to a man accused of a crime. Their lynching reveals the indiscriminate nature of racial violence. Innocence offered no shield. These stories, though difficult to hear, are crucial. They remind us that lynching wasn't an abstract concept. It was real. It destroyed lives. It tore families apart. We must remember these victims. We must say their names. Spectacles of brutality. Lynching in the Jim Crow era. As Jim Crow laws took hold, lynching became even more brazen. It was a public spectacle, a horrifying form of entertainment. Crowds gathered, often numbering in the thousands. They watched as Black men, women, and children were tortured and murdered. These lynchings were often advertised in advance. People traveled from miles around, they brought picnics, they took photos, they collected souvenirs. Postcards depicting the mutilated bodies of Black victims were sold and circulated. This public display of brutality served a purpose. It was a warning, a message to Black Americans: stay silent, stay powerless, or face the consequences. The terror was meant to be contagious. The complicity of law enforcement and the media was undeniable. Newspapers often incited violence with sensationalized stories and racist caricatures. Police rarely intervened, and even more rarely were perpetrators held accountable. This was the reign of terror under which Black Americans lived. From shadows to spotlight, Ida B. Wells Barnett's fight against lynching. In the face of this horror, voices of resistance rose. One such voice belonged to Ida B. Wells Barnett. A journalist and activist, Wells refused to let the truth be silenced. She meticulously documented lynchings, exposing the lies used to justify them. Wells challenged the myth that lynching was about protecting white women. She showed that accusations of rape were often fabricated to maintain racial control. Her work, though dangerous, was essential. Wells faced threats and violence for her activism. Forced to flee the South, she continued her work from the North. She lectured, wrote, and organized, demanding justice and an end to lynching. Wells's courage in speaking truth to power laid the groundwork for the civil rights movement. Her legacy reminds us that even in the darkest of times, hope and resistance can flourish. Her voice still echoes today, urging us to fight for justice. Section 5. Beyond the Noose. The evolution of lynching in the 20th century. The turn of the century did not erase the stain of lynching. While its most visible form declined, the underlying hatred mutated. It found new expressions, new ways to terrorize and control. Lynching evolved. Black veterans returning from war became targets. Having fought for freedom abroad, they were denied it at home. Their service and sacrifice counted for little in a society still ruled by white supremacy. The horrors of Emmett Till's murder in 1955 shocked the nation. A 14-year-old boy brutally killed for allegedly whistling at a white woman became a symbol of racial hatred's enduring power. The civil rights movement faced relentless violence. From the bombing of churches to the murders of activists, the fight for equality was met with brutal resistance. The noose may have become less common, but the terror remained. Section 6. Echoes of the Past. Modern manifestations of racial terror. Today, the legacy of lynching persists, it lives on in police brutality, mass incarceration, and systemic racism. The same systems that enabled lynching continue to oppress and dehumanize Black Americans. The names of Trayvon Martin, Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, and George Floyd are etched in our collective memory. These are not isolated incidents. They are part of a continuum of violence that stretches back to slavery and lynching. The fear, the anger, the grief. These are the echoes of the past. They remind us that the fight for justice is far from over. We must dismantle the systems that perpetuate racial terror. We must demand accountability. We cannot afford to be silent. The legacy of lynching demands that we speak out, that we challenge injustice wherever we see it. This is how we honor the victims. This is how we build a better future. Section 7. More than victims, reclaiming Black history and identity. It's crucial to remember that Black history is not solely defined by suffering. While acknowledging the horrors of lynching, we must also celebrate Black resilience, creativity, and triumph. Black Americans, despite facing unimaginable adversity, have shaped this nation. They have enriched our culture, advanced our society, and fought tirelessly for equality. Their stories deserve to be told and celebrated. From the Harlem Renaissance to the Civil Rights Movement, Black Americans have created movements that have transformed America. They have given us music, literature, art, and innovation. We must move beyond a narrative solely defined by victimhood. We must reclaim Black history in its fullness, celebrating the joy, the innovation, and the unwavering spirit that defines it. Bryan Stevenson, a renowned lawyer and social justice activist, offers a powerful insight. Slavery didn't end in 1865. It evolved. This statement encapsulates the enduring legacy of racial oppression in America. Lynching, as a tool of racial terror, may have declined in its most visible form. However, its core purpose, to maintain white supremacy and control Black lives, continues to manifest in new ways. From mass incarceration to economic inequality, the systems that once upheld slavery and Jim Crow have adapted and persisted. They operate through different mechanisms, but their impact remains devastatingly familiar. Stevenson's words serve as a stark reminder that the fight for racial justice requires more than simply addressing individual acts of racism. It demands a dismantling of the very structures that perpetuate inequality. Across America, countless unmarked graves hold the remains of lynching victims. These sites, often forgotten and neglected, stand as a chilling testament to the nation's legacy of racial terror. The absence of proper memorials and recognition speaks volumes. It reflects a painful truth that the lives of these victims were not deemed worthy of remembrance. Their stories were erased, their humanity denied. Confronting this legacy requires a commitment to uncovering these lost histories. It necessitates a national reckoning with the truth, however uncomfortable it may be. Establishing memorials, conducting research, and incorporating these narratives into education curricula are essential steps towards acknowledging the full scope of this tragedy. Only then can we begin to heal. The fight for racial justice is an ongoing struggle. It demands our active participation, our unwavering commitment to dismantling systems of oppression. Educate yourself. Learn about the history of lynching, its evolution, and its enduring legacy. Read books, watch documentaries, and engage with resources that shed light on this dark chapter of American history. Support organizations working tirelessly on the front lines of racial justice. Donate your time, resources, and voice to amplify their efforts. Challenge racism and discrimination wherever you encounter it. Speak up, call out injustice, and be an ally to those facing oppression. Here are some organizations dedicated to fighting racial injustice and preserving the memory of lynching victims. Equal Justice Initiative, EJI, EGI.org. NAACP, NAACP.org. The National Memorial for Peace and Justice Museum, and memorial.egi.org. These organizations provide valuable resources, educational materials, and opportunities to get involved in the fight for racial justice. Remember, silence is not an option. The legacy of lynching demands that we never forget, that we learn from the past, and that we fight tirelessly for a more just and equitable future.